Okay, so can we talk about why people are just so anxious to invest before they're really ready? When I was younger, I used to think of like investment people as these like big bankers somewhere investing millions and trillions of dollars. And it really didn't kind of sit home for like people like me to be investing. And, obviously, as time has passed, there are so many tools and they've made it more accessible, lesser fees. There's so many barriers that were in place between the regular folk and those that had like investment bankers that I think that the entry point is so much easier now. But is that a good thing? Is it a good thing, really? Because what I think is happening now is that people think that it's now, I'm not going to call it another form of gambling, but I think that people think, hey, I can put some money into a particular stock and hopefully it'll shot up and I'll make all this extra money. And that can be true, right? I remember my brother and I were really early on, and again, I'm aging myself, when the internet began. We had AOL, we had the Commodore 64, and, those dial ups that were like, ding. um, so we were very early on. Now, how do we invested when Google came out, when Simpatico was around, or whatever the new thing was at the time? Would we be in a different position right now? Probably. However, it's very difficult now to predict what is going to trend up in the future. So before people jump on board, they kind of have to like think about it, right? So, a lot of my clients, when the first thing that they ask me is like, where can we put my money to invest? And what I always say is that we need to make sure that the foundation is ready for the investment. And what do I mean by that? People want to jump ahead. Like there's a process to really having a strategic plan with your money, and people like to jump ahead. Let's dive into investing before but yet we have overdraft on our accounts, or our money isn't really designated properly. We don't have an emergency fund. We're missing, paying our bills on time. We have credit card debt, and they're ready to like put it all into the investment. So I'm not saying that everything needs to be perfect before you start to invest, but really we need to take a deep step back before we jump in and throw money into the markets. Are we really even ready? And investing, I find, is slightly emotional, right? You hear something from your friend that says, oh, they made a ton of money. And so then you want to, it's like almost like FOMO for investing. You don't want to miss out. And so you want to jump in and invest in that same company or product that's doing well. And maybe you're at the tail end. They started at the beginning and they're making a lot more than you are now because you're purchasing it at a higher point. So there's a lot of emotions that kind of go through when we talk about investing. And also, what I find is that people tend to do it when they are, I wouldn't say desperate, but they really want to make some extra cash. And so that's when they're throwing the money into the market. And to be honest, investments, and the word, if you look up the definition of the term, are something that's supposed to be boring, long term, something that you don't even think about, and is building in the background. That is what a true investment is. So, obviously at different age points of our lives, we can either be high risk or low risk. And, when we're younger, we want to just like, go all in. Like, we found a stock that's like a penny stock and we think it's going to go up and let's just go all in. They don't have as much to lose, right? Because lesser responsibilities. And fair enough, right? But all I would like is if we would just also parallel that with planning a little bit forward. So, again, let's have that emergency savings fund funded. Let's ensure that our budget is balanced. And let's ensure that we're strategically placing our money where we have the most optimization. So, there's tools in Canada like the RRSP or TFSA. And if you don't understand these models and the purpose of them, what the purposes are, you could be missing out on a lot of money because paying taxes on return, like let's say you do, boom in the stock market, all of a sudden now you have capital gains when you try and pull that money out. So we really need to understand and place our money strategically in the market and not only just rely on our emotions and something that somebody told us. And, to be honest, there are a lot of finance creators out there that are, sharing their investment portfolios online. They're giving, tips on what you should be investing in and maybe what you should not be investing in. And it's important to do your research, right? Sure. Listen to those advice, but make an educated decision when you go to like put in your actual money. Now, we talk a lot about EFTs, and some of the main ones would be like investing in the actual stock market. And again, those are really, I think, safe investments in the sense because you're investing in the entire market or an entire industry and not just a specific stock. And I think that will take away that anxiousness of the investment because it's in there for a long-term period of time. If you look at any of the S&P 500 EFTs, they're not meant to go in and out, investment in and out, in and out. Look at the trend over 5 years, look at the trend over 10 years, and see the pattern of it going up. Actually, I was scrolling through my phone the other day and I took a screenshot, I think it was like 2024, of the S&P 500, what it was at that time. And I'm like, I wonder what it is now. And I go and it was like $200 difference of profit over that course of period of time. So, investments are supposed to be something that you kind of put it in and you just forget about it and then watch your money kind of grow over time and try and take away the emotion out of it. And then, so now if I think about like how my thoughts have changed over time about investing, again, it was something that you just, wanted some quick wins. In the past, you were maybe a little bit more high risk. And now as I get older, you know, lower risk is not a bad thing, right? You're approaching maybe retirement, your kids are getting older, I don't need to invest in their education. And now my money, I don't want to really lose it if there's a change in the market. So I'm okay with waiting, right? I'm okay with slowing down the pace and maybe picking things that are a little bit more low risk. Maybe the return is not as high, but again, if I still have years, and so I can put the money in and just let it grow over time. So again, assessing where you are in life really has a lot to do with how you invest as well. What stage are you in? Where are your kids at? Right? When are you going to need your money for? And these are all decisions and things that you have to think about as you put your money into different vehicles. But it's not as easy as it sounds. You know, I mean, the theory sounds good, but patience, it's difficult, right? It's difficult to kind of like wait and see what happens. And I think this is where consistency kind of comes in and helps with that because if you, let's say, like for me, for example, I invest on a regular basis. So the money is just automatically drawn from my account and it goes into my investment accounts and then divvied up that way. But so therefore, I tend to forget. I tend to forget that that money is already being put aside. And eventually, like I'll look at the balance. I'm like, oh, okay, it's grown, or oh no, it's kind of dropped down, depending on what the market is saying. So practicing consistency will help you to be patient and not worry so much about what the end result is going to be. Because again, if we look at the trends tell us the longer you keep it in, the more money that you're going to make. I remember when my daughter actually was just about to go into university, and we had set up a fund, an RESP fund, for her education. Now, the problem was it was just after COVID, and the market was getting hit incredibly hard. And all the money that we had invested, all the gains that we had made over the years, disappeared like that. And it was really upsetting because we'd worked so hard and we'd been patient and we were ready to take the money out to pay for her education, and all the gains that we had were gone. And again, this is the risk that we take by investing our money. Sometimes it works out and then other times it doesn't. So Yes, was I a little bitter? Just a little, still am. But, it is what it is. So, changing our mindset, thinking about how we can um, make more wise choices. I think that's what the key to all this is, just to make some more wise choices. And wisdom comes with research, it comes with patience, it comes with consistency. These are the things that will build our tolerance for risk. And in the end, we're going to be a way more fruitful and really benefit from the purpose of an investment. So the longer I work around money, I realize that investing really isn't about the numbers. It kind of reveals what people perceptions are, how they deal with patience, how they deal with uncertainty, how they deal with comparison, and how they deal with pressure. I think that when people kind of imagine wealth, they see people with a lot of freedom and be able to do whatever they want and travel where they want to go. But the most successful people repeat small decisions consistently. They learn not to react emotionally. They learn actually how to slow down. And they learn to build something boring and sustainable. Because we all can't predict the future. So we just have to behave differently while we wait for it. So if you don't know, my name is Carolyn, and I have conversations about money that most people avoid. So if this type of conversation interests you, subscribe and join our community. Bye for now.